I'm going to start recording. All right. Um, and Angela has requested, Angela, do you want me to make you presenter? Did you mean to click that to request presenter rights? Are you there, Angela? Okay. All right. I'm going to assume no. So, okay, let's go ahead and go through some things. Just an update. I am working to get all of your week 2 assignments graded and hope to have that finished this evening. So just wanted to let everybody know on that. And I think with the one class, I actually put week 1 grades in week 2 accidentally, so I've updated that and changed that back over. So just know that that change is made. Looks like everybody's going through and doing pretty well with the quizzes. Were there any questions or anything like that surrounding the quizzes or anything with regard to those? Everybody's using the study sheets? Okay. Okay, good. Everybody says yes. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and go into um, questions. So somebody want to let me know if they have a question? And I did not receive any emailed questions, so just so you guys know. Remember, this is your session. This is your Q&A session. So unless you ask questions, it's going to be pretty short. Wrong one. Okay. Okay. So question about this week's homework assignment. Which one, Christopher? P4-10A. Okay. So let me get down to that question. Okay. I'm past it. Okay. So it's a multi-step income statement and adjusting entries, right? What's your question? There are 2 sections to this question. There's the general journal that you have to complete. So you're making the journal entries, and then in part B, you're creating the income statement. Okay. Okay. All right. So for part A, okay. So didn't know what the insurance expense was, so we didn't know how to start it. Okay. Good question. All right. So you've got prepaid insurance that was $1,200. Okay, so basically, and you're gonna see this a lot in the problems where you have information and it may or may not seem like all of the information. That's purposeful. It's making you go and search out and figure out, okay, I've got these bits of information. How can I convert that into, a journal entry or a financial statement, what have you? So sometimes you're going to have to solve these problems, even somewhat backwards. Okay. So basically what's happening is you've got to go in and find the insurance. Okay. So here we see that we have prepaid insurance of $6,000, right? So that's one thing that we can see, right? So you have to look at this, right, and figure out where all of these accounts belong, okay? So cash, we know that's a balance sheet account. Accounts receivable is a balance sheet account. Basically all of these over here are all your balance sheet accounts, right? These, on the other hand, are all of your income statement accounts, okay? So when we're talking about number one with prepaid insurance, right? Basically, what is being told is the Boston Trading Company accounting year ends December 31st, and these were the normal balances in the general ledger at December 31st. Okay, so the balances, what it's asking you to do is to kind of figure out what's the journal entry that you have to do. So this was the balance at December 31st. However, data for the year-end procedures was as follows. So number one, it said prepaid insurance on December 31st was $1,200. Okay, so you have to record an entry for that $1,200. So that means that you're going to take that $6,000 that was recorded up here, and you're going to subtract out that $1,200. Okay, so that leaves you with a prepaid insurance balance of, what's 6,000 minus 1,200? $4,800, right? Okay, so you have to record that $4,800. So you're going to actually credit $4,800, right, to prepaid insurance, and then you would debit a $4,800 expense, because if this was our balance at the end of the year, this $1,200, we obviously had an expense that came through, right, of the $6,000 or of the $4,800 off of that $6,000. Okay, does that make sense? Is everybody able to hear me? Okay. Just want to make sure, because I think Christopher's having some audio issues. Okay. So, okay. Any other questions on that one? So again, you're just going to go through, you're going to do your journal entries for each one of those options for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then you're going to create the new income statement based off of those entries. Okay? Very straightforward income statement. You're just going to have sales revenue, cost of goods sold, gross profit on sales, selling and general administrative expenses, income before income tax, and net income. Okay? Those are the only categories that you need to have on your income statement. You don't have to break it out. Sound good? Okay.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, it just took me a long time to type. So when we're creating this income statement, we're only creating one or we're creating two? That's where I'm confused because it says multi-step income statement and adjusted entry. So we're creating two with the adjusted entries or just one total?
You're just creating one income statement. So the only thing you're doing is you're doing a general journal for A. Okay, so you're doing all of your journal entries for these 5 things right up here. Okay, and then you come down to B and you prepare one income statement. It's literally just sales revenue, cost of goods, gross profit, SG&A, which is selling, general, and administrative expenses, um, income before income tax, and net income. Those are the lines that you're creating for this. And keep in mind, whatever you do in your journal entries up at the top, you have to reflect off of these balances here from the income statement. So if you're booking a journal entry, which you are in those five lines, okay, you have to reflect that appropriately on the income statement. So
Okay.
you'll start with sales revenue is still going to be 630. Your cost of goods is still going to be 404, right? So then you get your gross profit, and then your SG&A expense is one that you have to calculate. You have to figure out what all goes into SG&A, which is the selling, general, and administrative expenses. Sorry, I use acronyms because I've been in accounting for so long. SG&A is selling, general, and administrative expenses. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? Everybody okay on the problem number 5, 5-2A? That one's a really long journal entry. And just keep in mind that on that journal entry, there are some that you have to calculate. So you will have to figure out what ones you need to calculate, okay? It's not all of them. There's some of them it's pretty easy, but it's mostly figuring out what account goes where. Okay? Other questions? Do you have any questions over Module 3? Or anything that's just not making sense in general? I know, I know it can be a little overwhelming, but is there any basic foundational questions that, you're just not getting, like debits and credits, or, how do I know what account goes on the income statement and what account goes on a balance sheet? Nope. Or are we typing? Which one, Angela? Which one do you have trouble with? You want me to break it out for you real easily? What account goes with what? Okay. Here's how you remember it, okay? Anytime you have the word revenue or sales, okay? Anytime you have the word revenue or sales, just take a look at this, okay? Revenue and sales goes on the income statement. So revenue and sales are the same thing, right? So a lot of times in accounting and the accounting books and stuff like that, they will use terms simultaneously, meaning they'll call it revenue in one problem and they'll call it sales in the next problem. It's the same thing. Revenue is revenue, sales is sales. Okay. So revenue and sales are the top part of the income statement. Okay. From there, you get you take out your cost of goods. Okay, so let me just line this up. See if I can pull up a blank spreadsheet here. Okay, so this is kind of the way it lines out. All right, you're going to have an income statement. You're going to have revenue slash sales minus your cost of goods sold. In accounting world, that's called COGS, right? Cost of goods sold. Okay. Oops. Doesn't like the fact that I put. Okay. That's going to equal your gross profit. Okay. So from there, you come down and you've got all of your expenses. So that's what we call the SG and A. Okay. Expenses. So that's stuff like, typically it goes something like this, like salaries or wages. Payroll taxes, meaning like your state, fed, state, and Medicare, things like that, Social Security tax, right? Then you start getting into other things, like you might have travel in here. So if you have sales reps that travel, right? So you could have travel expenses in there. You could have professional services, right? You could have office supply expense. Now, don't get this confused with your office supplies. So you've got to think of this in terms of income statement and balance sheet. The income statement is solidly revenue slash sales and expenses. That's it. Okay? And it gives you your net income. Balance sheet, on the other hand, is giving you your assets. It's basically telling you what your company is worth. Okay? So they have assets, which are things like cash, so the money you've got in the bank, right? Let's see what else. Office, your building and land is an asset. Your supplies, right? So especially if you're talking about a manufacturing company, it would also be considered, the materials that they have, right? Prepaid insurance. So a lot of times what happens in the business world, companies prepay their insurance. So they'll pay for their liability insurance and everything else on an annual basis. meaning they just chunk it out all at once, right? So that is actually an asset because that's money that they've put out there to buy something, right? It is actually something they own, okay? So prepaid insurance is another example. Accounts receivable, because that's money that people owe you. That is actually an asset, okay? Um, let's see. Then let's talk about liabilities, okay? So liabilities would be stuff like accounts payable. That's money you owe people, right? Any loans, okay? So loans payable, right? Um, bonds. So if a company issues bonds, right, to help pay for stuff or to help fund stuff, and we'll get into that a lot later. Okay, so those are all liabilities. Then stockholders' equity is the last part of the balance sheet. Okay, so basically, you have on your income statement literally just revenue, cost of goods, and all of your expenses. And those can line out all along the way. These offset to the balance sheet in either assets or liabilities. Okay, so, and again, there are many more categories that can be included in on these. So what you have to do, what you have to ask yourself is this a sale? Is it an expense? Is it an asset? Is it something that my company owns, right? Or is it a liability? Is it something that my company owes somebody else? Does that make sense? So if you use this model, right, this will really help you because what this is going to do is this is going to get you, for instance, hang on just a minute. Trying to get all my screens going here. So this is going to get you your, when you subtract out all of the expenses from your gross profit, this is going to get you your income before income tax. Okay, then you're going to put your income tax expense. Again, we're talking expense, right? And finally, when you subtract that out of your income before income tax, you get your net income. Okay, so think of income statement as what am I making? What am I spending? Right? That's kind of what your income statement was born to do. What am I making? What am I spending? Common stock, Angela, would be over here in stockholders' equity. Okay? So common stock is always going to be over on the balance sheet side. Okay? Make sense? Oops, I'm scrolling the wrong way. Okay. All right, so just think of income statement, revenue, expenses, right? Balance sheet, assets, liabilities, stockholders' equity. Okay? And we'll get into the statement of cash flows later on as well. But that's more of like what type of cash, when it says statement of cash flows, it literally means where's my cash going? Where's everything going out of my bank account? That's it. It really is no more complex than that whatsoever. It's like, okay, I'm doing operating activities, I'm doing investing activities, right? So it's literally just saying, what did I do under operating activities to spend cash, to decrease my cash balance here over in the balance sheet? What did I do in terms of investing to decrease or increase, my cash, right? So those are the types of things that we're going to be talking about with the statement of cash flows. So it you'll find accounting is very intimidating because it seems like a lot, but when you stop and you just process what are the words saying, right? Income statement, income, income expense. Think about creating your own personal income statement. Okay, I had this much come in salary, in revenue, right? And I had this much go out in paying my bills, right? That's an income statement because you're finding out what kind of net income you have left over. Okay? Your balance sheet, your own personal balance sheet. How many assets do I have? Do I have a savings account that has money sitting in it? Things like that. So try to relate it to your own life. Do I own a house? That's an asset, right? So just start thinking in that mindset and start going down through these and thinking that way in terms of a company, right? The company itself has income, it has expenses, it has assets, it has liabilities, right? All of them do. Okay. Does that help? Does that make more sense? If you guys can get that part of it and really just nail that down, it's going to make your life so much easier through the rest of this class. And I understand that the problems do take a long time because you have to sit there and you have to think, but that's part of the training your brain, of how do I need to make this entry? You know, do I have an expense here? Do I have an asset? Do I have a liability here? What do I have? Right? That that will come with more practice. You'll get really, really good at it. Okay? But you just have to train your brain to think of it in terms of those really, for the most part, if I'm honest, it's really usually about 4 different quadrants. Okay? Meaning you have your revenue and your sales quadrant, you have your expense quadrant, you have your assets, and you have your liabilities. That's where we spend a majority of our time in accounting. Okay. Yes, there's always stockholders' equity stuff. Yes, you're going to get exposure to the statement of cash flows with the operating activities and investing activities. But for the most part, if you can get the income side, the expense side, the balance sheet side of assets and liabilities, you're going to be golden. Okay? And that's also why I tell you to start early on these problems. I know somebody said it takes so long to do these. It's very true. When you're first learning accounting, it does take a long time, especially with these problems. That's why it looks like, oh, I've only got 3 problems for the week. Well, guess what? Those 3 problems may take you 5, 6 hours to do because you have to research and figure out where does this belong in the puzzle piece, right? So that's why I say start early and ask often. Okay? Don't ever spin your wheels on something. If you're not getting it or you're not finding something, don't get frustrated and spin your wheels and just put something down. Okay? Ask the question and we'll get you an answer. Okay? I'll make sure that I get you an answer. If it requires me doing an additional phone call, I can do that too. Okay? Other questions, guys? Please don't be shy. I promise you, you're not the first accounting student with the question that you probably have. So, in fact, I've probably asked it when I was, in your shoes. Okay. Don't see any other questions coming through. So we will go ahead and wrap it up. And you guys let me know if anything else comes up. Okay. Otherwise, homework due Thursday night at midnight or 11:59 p.m. And then quizzes are due on Sunday. So just please make sure you're hitting those deadlines. Keep in mind, we are already in week 3. Next week is week 4. Week 4 is your midterm. Okay. So the week 4 webinar, we are going to be talking a lot about that midterm and what you need to do. Okay. Please don't take the midterm ahead of time, ahead of the webinar, because I think it will reduce the wrong answers that you put in. Some of the answers, so the webinar being that it's online and in, the quiz module, basically, you have to put the exact answer in a specific format in the answer box. Otherwise, it will count your answer wrong. Okay. So I'm going to go over all of that next week. And we'll go over what to study for and, how to prep yourself for that webinar. I'll give you some really great study tips. And, it's up to you. If you want to use them, fine. If you don't, fine too. And, just we'll go through it and hopefully everybody feels comfortable. Okay. So, let me know if you have any other questions. Okay, guys? You are very welcome. All right. Everybody have a great week, and I'm here if you need me. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you soon.